If you zoom in on a map of Narita Airport in Japan, you'll notice something very strange. You're going to see farms seemingly sprinkled in randomly between the runways and the buildings. These little farms and houses are the last remnants of one of post-war Japan's most effective and deadly protest movements, the Sanrizuka struggle. In the 1960s, the Japanese government predicted that Tokyo International Airport would soon become inadequate to serve the area, and that a new airport needed to be constructed. After many delays and location changes, the final decision was reached in 1966 to build the airport in a quiet area in Sanrizuka, which at that point was a small farming community. However, the locals were not consulted or informed of the decision ahead of time. Building an airport on land that people had spent their entire lives working on was not very popular. The government reasoned that because most of the proposed airport could be built on state-owned land, there would be minimal land requisition. However, the government land was too small, and only made up around one-half of the area needed, which meant lots of requisitioning. Predictably, the angry farmers soon mobilized and formed the Sanrizuka Shibayama Anti-Airport Union, which rapidly began attracting members from places the government had previously tried to build the airport, before switching to Sanrizuka. When surveying began in the August of 1966, the protesters formed a roadblock, but were forcibly removed. In the end, the government managed to install 3 entire pile drivers on the land, which was hailed as a great success. By the next year, a large number of radical leftist students had also joined the union. When a ceremony was held on the state-owned land, the students intervened and destroyed the assembly hall. The protests soon intensified into riots, and soon Sanrizuka had become a battlefield as students, farmers, and supporters engaged in what were essentially medieval battles with the riot police. In the fall of 1971, 3 police officers were killed by protesters in the Toho Crossroads incident, and then a leader of the student opposition committed suicide, saying that he had lost the will to continue fighting. The next year, a large tower was constructed by the union near the runway in order to stop the test flights. However, airport construction, although heavily delayed, was able to continue. The Sanrizuka struggle reached its climax in 1977, when the government finally declared that the airport would open within a year. On April 17th, the Anti-Airport Union mobilized a record number of around 17,000 people, who held a general protest. In May, 2,000 riot police faced off against perhaps as many as 2,000 protesters defending the tower on the runway. After 2 deaths, the police were able to take the tower and demolish it. As the airport construction neared completion, it became more and more obvious that the strength of the union was fading and that it could no longer prevent the airport from opening. Therefore, the protesters decided to make a final stand against the government. On March 26th, a diversion protest of 10,000 people was held, while a burning truck plowed through the airport's gates. Around 100 rioters and left-wing militants broke through and engaged the police in combat. Meanwhile, 16 radicals emerged from a manhole and rushed towards the control tower. After brutal fighting, they proceeded to destroy all the equipment, painted a hammer and sickle on the window, and raised a red flag. This final attack delayed the opening by several more months. Narita Airport opened on May 20th, 1978, after a decade of violent opposition, guarded by more than 14,000 police who were confronted by 6,000 unruly protesters. That day, the power to an air control building was cut by an opposition group in Tokorozawa, disrupting air traffic for several more hours. Travelers entered the airport through a road bordered by high metal walls and guarded by heavily armed police. Until 2015, all visitors had to show their IDs upon entrance. The airport's builders had originally envisioned 5 runways, but only 1 was constructed in time for the opening. Additionally, later completed runways were too short to land Boeing 747s on, as the government did not want to requisition more land for fears of further protests. In fact, the unrest while building Narita was one of the reasons the government decided to build the now famous Kansai International Airport on reclaimed land in the ocean. However, their fears were unwarranted since the union became much weaker after the airport opened. In addition, secret negotiations with the government had been leaked to the press, which resulted in it fracturing into various successor groups, some of which continued to commit illegal acts against it. Today, the last remnants of the anti-airport movement are the houses dotted between the runways, a shrine, and a metal tower that forces the airport to curve around it. Although the movement itself has long since died down, the Sanrizuka struggle, as it is known in Japan, remains an important incident of social unrest, along with the similar 1955 Bloody Sunagawa protests, where unarmed Japanese activists forced the United States to cancel airbase expansion plans by peacefully sitting in and allowing the police to beat them, leading to rise of anti-American sentiment and the eventual halt of the airbase project.